Join us in the Bear Den, a real-life, real-love podcast celebrating the joys and challenges of parenting, family dynamics, and unconditional love.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Bear Den podcast. My guest today is a beautiful lady that I met about a year ago. She facilitated a breathwork session for me where I had one of my biggest breathwork breakthroughs. She is an amazing parent, has an amazing story to share. She's a dear friend of mine. It is Miss Michelle Rains.
Oh, I got the chills. I'm so happy to be here.
I know, me too.
I really am.
Me too. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for taking your time out of your morning to come and sit with me.
Yes.
So I want to dive right in. We kind of know what we're going to talk about. We're going to go right into this. So you have a super interesting story with lots of different facets to it, with parenting. There's addiction in there. There's marriage. There's trauma. There's breath work. There's all these beautiful things in your story. So let's go right back to the beginning where you were as a kid. I want to talk about you and your childhood and growing up. So what was Michelle's childhood like?
Oh, I love this. I grew up with 4 brothers. I'm the only girl.
Only girl?
Yeah. So I have a younger
Were they protective?
brother.
Were they super protective brothers?
Very.
Because I don't have a sister, and I always thought if I had a sister, I'd be like, you look at my sister the wrong way, I'll punch you in the throat.
Yes. My 3 older are very protective. Like still to this day, I'm 41 years old. And if I come to a family function and my shoulders are showing, they'll be like, do you need a coat? Do you need something to cover up?
Really?
Oh yeah. They still are. We've gone to a bar together, all of us in our adult life. We went to Chicago and they just stood there watching every move I made. Yeah, they're very protective. So, but my
Do you
youngest,
like that?
oh, it's endearing now. When I was growing up, it was very annoying.
Yeah.
It was, very annoying. They would scare guys off.
I was going to say, was it more like you couldn't date a guy,
Oh,
you couldn't
no.
do anything because your brothers were...
Yeah. So now it's somewhat endearing, but, and then I have a younger brother. Yeah. So, and we're about 3 years apart, and then 3 years, all of us are about 3 years apart. So growing up, I really, it's so funny, right? Because I feel like we are living in this era where like, we're all like our story, what is our story? And like my childhood was pretty dang good.
Yeah.
I was raised in the LDS church. So that was a very standard in our house. But yeah,
Which explains why your shoulders are showing in a bar and your brothers are going
and
crazy.
they're like freaking out. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So anyway, yeah, me and my youngest brother, we were really close. So from the second he came home from the hospital, first off, I was a little ticked off he was a boy. I mean, that's the 4th boy. I wanted a girl. But as a 3-year-old little girl, I realized really quickly that this brand new baby was like a live baby doll for me. So I would get in the crib with him. I would put him in my strollers.
Now, is this Brad?
Yes.
Okay, love
I
this.
would put him, in my stroller. I have a picture of me with my fist up about to sock him in the face because he's crying as he's in my dolly stroller.
Nice. So that's a good tone for parenting later on in life, yeah?
Totally. Yeah, we laugh to this day about that picture. So yeah, so I grew up just really, my family was really tight-knit, really close. And I was 13 when I first had my first panic attack, my struggle with anxiety. My grandma passed away. And I think that was just a realization that someone can be here one day and then they're gone the next.
Yeah.
And so I remember having my first panic attack, and my mom knew what it was because she suffered horribly from mental health stuff, from depression and anxiety. And yeah, so she knew right away what it was and how to help me. Now, I believe my mom was doing the best she knew how, which was, give me Xanax, give me something to help take, the edge off of the panic attack. So from 13 on, that was such a pivotal moment for me because I remember starting to identify myself that the anxiety was me. This is who I was. And life is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear in life. So my childhood, it was carefree, fun. I, was a very reckless 16, 17, 18-year-old, started drinking, doing all the partying. And
so how did that come about? Because obviously you're in part of the LDS faith.
Yes.
So drinking, alcohol, partying, all those those sort of naughty vices aren't part of that religion, aren't part of that world.
No.
You've obviously got 3 siblings old, two older, one younger. You've got parents. Like, you are in a very loving LDS family.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it that kind of made you step outside of that and want to look into the alcohol, the partying, the vices, that kind of stuff? What was it that led to that?
Great question. The anxiety.
Was just
I
the
remember
anxiety?
the very first time I took a drink, the anxiety went away.
Really?
And I just remember thinking like, oh, okay, this is what I want to feel. And the anxiety went away, and I was a little bit more social, and I was a little bit more fun when I had a little bit of alcohol in me. So it was, it was the whole thing of totally lying to my parents, having nights of staying at different girlfriends' house because I couldn't go home because I had been drinking. And little did I know, at the same time I started drinking, which, yes, I was 15, 3 years younger. My brother was 12. He started as well.
Wow.
So he started drinking at a friend's house. There was alcohol available that,
Did
was...
he know you were drinking?
No, neither of us knew.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
So you're both kind of doing it in private?
Oh,
in,
yeah. It was,
in quiet?
hush, hush on Sundays. We wake up, put our church clothes on, go to church. We had to play the part
There's
for
some double life shit
for my
right
parents. Oh, yeah. And I honestly had so many friends that were LDS that I started to go, okay, this is just kind of what you do. Like, you just lie to your parents and but I just remember it taking the edge off of that anxiety. And, I went on to be somewhat reckless and drink. And I got in a really, really gnarly relationship at 18 years old. And it was from 18 to 22, and it ended abusive.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible though. And in those years that I was in this abusive relationship, my parents, again, doing the best they could, my brother, it finally came to the forefront that there was a drug problem. So he had started drinking at 12 to ease his anxiety. And it had just progressively gotten worse.
Was his anxiety based on the same thing, your grandmother passing?
No.
Or was it his own demons?
His was his own, and it was some bullying that was happening. He went through a very, very chubby phase as a kid.
Prove them wrong, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've seen my brother today, yeah, exactly. You realize like there's something that's driving that, wanting him to always stay aesthetically, pleasing. I think he's probably gone back and dealt with some of that bullying, but yeah, so it was just, I was in this awful, 18 to 22 years old, like, when really I feel like that's a really precious time of like developing like a woman learning how to be treated by a man, right? Mm-hmm. And my dad's amazing. And I only learned to appreciate my dad in my 30s. My dad he always had, my dad was a hard worker, like the epitome of, you have a 9 to 5, you have a pension, you have a retirement, you do all the things correctly. Mm-hmm. Right. He also had a lot of callings within the LDS church. So my dad was busy a lot. Right. When it came to the forefront that my brother had a massive drug addiction, that he was addicted to opiates, I was in this abusive relationship. And I just remember my parents, I think it was just like we have to focus on one thing. And so we can't really focus on you. Yeah. And so my relationship just got horrible and abusive. And, I ended up getting out of it, thank God, at 22 years old. But at that point I was really just kind of like a broken soul. Like, people talk about souls now, and I don't even think I was aware of that. And I think that's a pretty typical story. I mean, Luckily, I think the dialogue's changing. I think our generation's changing, these younger kids understanding the soul to intuition thing. Yeah. But I just remember going, I've got to get out of this relationship. I don't want to go home because my brother it's chaos. Yeah. Drug addiction is a family disease in the way it is chaos. Yeah. There's just,
Did Brad's addiction and your family dealing with Brad's addiction push you further down the rabbit hole of the vices, the drinking, the partying, the bad decisions? Because all of a sudden you didn't have a support system at home because they were so focused on Brad, which, and rightly too, right? If you've got a kid who's on an opioid addiction and whatever, like, you want to pour in the love and get them right and get them healthy. But as you said, it comes at a sacrifice. You can't, if you're putting all your energy into one, the energy gets pulled back from everything else. And so did you feel like you were kind of abandoned or lost, that you didn't have a support system at home because they were so focused on Brad?
Yeah, I definitely did. And it's so funny because I wasn't like putting it together that it's like, okay, he's got this addiction and I'm over here numbing everything with alcohol, right? Like not realizing, but I did not know how else to self-regulate. Like I did not know because the thing is I think about my growing up and it's not that it was like, there was never abuse. There was never any of that. But what I grew up in was kind of an emotionally dysregulated home. Like we didn't really know how to regulate our emotions. As the only girl growing up, a lot of times when my emotions were big, I was told to go to your room.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of taught really young that my emotions aren't safe to feel outwardly, right? Because I'm being told to go feel them by myself. So it definitely, I just, I kept drinking into my 20s and I did do like, I remember my parents, when I left this relationship, they said, you have to do something with your life. Like you've got to figure this out. I mean, my dad, the 9 to 5 that you go to school, you get an education, you work till you're 65 and you retire. Like,
yeah.
They're like, you've got to do something. So you know what that something was? I went to cosmetology school because I was like, if I have to pick something, like I'm just going to do like kind of what I perceived as like the easy thing, right? I'm going to go to cosmetology school. So I did. And the truth is today, it's like if someone says, what are some of your accomplishments? I tell them cosmetology school is a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And I ended up dragging it out because I got pregnant during beauty school. So while I was in beauty school, I ended up getting pregnant. And this was in correlation to my brother getting into his first rehab. He went to his first rehab while I was in beauty school. And it's wild to think back, and anyone out there listening, like if you have an addicted loved one, they get into that first rehab and you literally feel yourself breathe again for the first time because you think this is it. You think this is going to solve it all. Like this is going to fix, air quotes, him. And I laugh looking back because that year he went on for 6 more years after his first rehab.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
did you find it difficult to support Brad in what he was going through, knowing that on the other hand, in private and quiet, you were having your own struggles, like you were using alcohol, not using alcohol for the pleasure of alcohol, like going out and having drinks with friends, but you using alcohol as a crutch to numb the pain, numb the anxiety. Was it hard for you to kind of support Brad and be like, hey, this is fine, you can do this, when in the other, behind closed doors, you're also doing the kind of the same thing, but just with a different vice?
Yeah, it was so funny because I think of Michelle back then, and I had this, it was like opiates, meth, cocaine in this, like just you're a junkie, and alcohol is just this fun numbing type thing, that like this was okay. That I remember having conversations of him of like, why can't you just drink? Like, why can't you just give up like the opiates and the meth and the and just drink? Like this numbs it too. And like, he was so far in at that point. I mean, he was so heavily addicted that there was no like,
there's no
reasoning like that of like, oh, okay, So making like his addiction that went on, like I said, he hits, this rehab and I think this is it. No, this was not it. It went on for longer and longer. So anyways, I end up pregnant in beauty school. Makes beauty school drag out way longer than it should, but I took a bunch of time off, but I did successfully complete it. That is one thing that people will say, what are you proud of? And I'm like, I literally graduated. Like I was 9 months pregnant doing my practical exam, on my feet, swollen feet. And I was like, I have to do this for this little girl.
Yeah.
Like at this point, her biological father was gone. I mean, I told him I was pregnant and he said, well, good luck, take care, like, not my problem. He lived in California. So I knew I had to make a life for myself. I realized that. Now, it's the coolest thing looking back and now sharing with her at 17 years old. She was that pivotal moment for me that I stopped drinking. I got pregnant. I stopped drinking. I realized I have to do something with my life for this little girl. Like it's me and her.
Yeah.
Like there's no one else. And my parents, now, I mind you, in the LDS faith, that's a little taboo to get pregnant out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And so my parents were very adamant, we will support you. You can live here, but we will not raise your child. We will not raise her. Like you will raise her. You will be her mom. I contemplated adoption. went and did some different things to kind of look at some families. And at 8 months, I just had this feeling, which now I know is my intuition, that just said, you can do this.
And you were what, 19?
I was 24.
Oh, you were 24 at this point.
23 at the time. I was 24 when I had her. So really, it's not like I was super young.
Yeah.
I just was single.
Yeah.
And really just like
How taboo.
what was that?
How taboo.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I have this little girl, and it's a funny story now, but my brother was still using drugs. So he came to the hospital when I was in labor, and this is just a funny story, but he was talking, and the nurse said, "Oh, what language does your brother speak?" I said, "He speaks English. He's just really high." She's like, "Would you like him to leave?" I'm like, "Please." Yeah. He speaks English. So
it's bad when Brad's taking the epidural and not you.
yeah, exactly.
Can I get one of those?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. He's trying to hook himself up to my IV.
Both of you are laying in gurneys next to each other, both pushing. Like, Brad's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but God, it feels good.
But I feel great. Yeah. So that's just a funny tidbit. But yeah, so I ended up having this baby girl. Her dad is her biological father, not in the picture, right? Mm-hmm. And I realized that life has to change. Like life has to look better. Like I have to show up and do the things. And so fast forward, several years, well, a few years, 3 years. She and I actually took off and moved to Arizona.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah,
Yay.
for a month in June.
Grand Canyon State, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Where did you live in Arizona?
In Mesa.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. And
Also has a heavy LDS kind of population in Mesa, Arizona. So was it because of that?
Do they? Okay, so so I'll back up a little bit. So I ended up leaving the church pretty much while I was pregnant with her. There was, I'm sure there are really good people who accept it, but where I was, it was very frowned upon. Everyone would come in contact with me and say, "Oh, so you're placing her, right?" Like it was just this, you're placing her for adoption because
Gotcha.
I'm an unwed mother. And, so anyways, I had my own differences with the church, but I really just kind of fell away from the church. A lot of people will leave the LDS faith. I fell away from it.
Did that, well, just touch on that real quick, because you've got people in your faith that you grew up in that are saying that to you, are you going to give her up for adoption because you're a single, mom at that point? But then you've also got on the other side, outside of the LDS church, you've got normal life where it's okay to be a single mom and a single parent, and it's not frowned upon. It's accepted and helped. And so was that one of the kind of deciding factors for you leaving the church? It's well, the church is telling me I'm not going to get any assistance and help. Everybody in the real world does this and gets help and support. Why am I in this faith? Was that kind of the...
Yeah, that was definitely the final where I was just this does not make sense. This is, and I think inside I knew if you only knew what she has done for my life already, and she's not even into this world yet. She has completely turned my life around. I have quit drinking. I have realized I've got to make something of myself. I've graduated hair school. These accomplishments, knowing I have this little life to take care of, to me, that is far better.
It's a great lesson.
The lessons that were learned. So, so I had her, and when she was about 3, I met a guy while I was bartending at a local pub, and I met him. He was here skiing.
Ooh.
I know. And the funny part is, at this point, my husband Tyler, I knew him. Okay. I had met him. And we had, hung out a little bit here and there, but nothing serious. So I meet this guy while I'm bartending, end up long distance relationship. I end up moving there, right, to see if we can start a relationship. That lasted a whole whopping 28 days. Got there, do your research, real well. That's what I'll say. Real well.
True story.
Don't be naive. Now it's so funny to think about, this short of years later, I guess this long later, how much more you can really know somebody by doing a little bit of research. Then it was just kind of I had to take his word for it. And, anyways, his life was nothing like what I thought. So again, a really good lesson though. And it was the crazy part is the way that it made me show up for my daughter, and the way that like my daughter remembers little bits of it, but she just remembers, she says, Mom, I remember how strong you were. Like you packed up our car, you got me in my car seat. Like she remembers little blips of it, and you got us home, and, you know, I got us back home. And that's really when like my life started. At that point, Tyler and I reconnected. We reconnected, and his version of it is so much more beautiful than I can articulate it.
Yeah.
Of reconnecting. And Tyler had he had had a lot of struggles in his life, a lot of struggles. And I don't know what it was, and I still to this day can't tell you, but I saw that man, and I knew that that's what my heart needed. My heart was so broken by that point. I'd been in an abusive relationship. I'd moved out of state for a man that was nothing what he said he was. I really, like I tell people, I had this like barricade around my heart because I was like, if nobody can get in, I can't get hurt. But what happens if you barricade your hurt? You can't give love either.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
You're just kind of a shell of a human. Yeah. And
did you have family support? So you've gone very independent. You've moved to Arizona for 28 days because of a guy that you knew nothing about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you still have support of your family at this point? Your mom, your dad, your siblings?
Yeah, somewhat. They were, they were very disappointed in my choices. But I have to say I have pretty dang good parents that I could fall back on. Yeah. And me and my mom, it was like we were friends almost to a fault sometimes. But I did have the support. And yeah, I came back and Tyler and I reconnected, and I just felt something from him that I knew I wanted. It was the weirdest thing to try to explain, because I knew he was safe. Mm-hmm. I can't explain it beyond that. Like the way I felt when I was in his presence, I was like, I am so safe.
You do feel that from Tyler. I know your husband Tyler really well. He's a beautiful human. Mm-hmm. When he and I get together, I don't think we stop laughing.
I don't think so either.
Ever. It's like from the moment we see each other to the moment we say goodbye, we are literally just laughing and taking the piss out of each other, and it's beautiful. So I get that, exactly what you're saying, because there are certain people you just meet in life. You're like, that's a cool person. That's a safe person, right?
Yeah.
And you just get that immediate feeling where it's like, I feel good hanging around you. You're not going to bring anything untoward. Like you're just a good human being.
Yes.
And then there's other people you meet in life. It's like, I feel you're a good person, but there's my gut, my microbiome is telling me something that says, don't lean in all the way just yet.
Yeah.
Give it a little time.
I need a little more proof.
You know what I mean? But you're absolutely right. Tyler's one of those. The first time I met him, I was like, this dude's a really good dude.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you mean. Yeah, I totally get what you mean by that.
Yeah. And at the time I don't think I had the emotional intelligence to understand that's what I was feeling as safe. What I told people at the time, listen how funny this is, he was a sure thing. That's what I would tell people. He's a sure thing, meaning I had gotten my heart broken so much that I was like, well, he's a sure thing. Like, and I will say he was so smitten by me that.
Of course he was. Look at you.
Right, I know.
Look
I'm like,
this
little
hot mama over here. Of course it's going to be a sure thing.
Yeah, right. And get the bonus of my daughter, right? This sweet little 3-year-old redhead running around, Anyway, Tyler and I reconnected, and we got together it's been almost 14 years. So it was November 5th of 2009 that we really became a thing. Yeah. And I'm going to be completely honest, and it's Tyler's story to tell. But again, he struggled in life. He had nothing when we got together.
Yeah.
I moved him into the apartment with me and my daughter. My parents were less than thrilled.
Yeah. Well, that's a very big leap of faith.
Very big.
Because you're bringing not only an individual who has had struggles, which we're not going to talk about today, but I'm actually going to have Tyler on the podcast in the future, and we will share that story so people can put two and two together. But he's had his struggles.
Yes.
You're a single mom, 24, 25. You're bringing him in, bringing a man not only into your home and into your heart space and your life, but also into your daughters.
Yes.
You as a parent have to be really fucking clinically clear that this person is a safe place.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You've got to be 100% on the nose that this person is safe, because if you're not only are you putting yourself in jeopardy, but you're also putting your daughter in jeopardy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like looking back, it's like if I were to tell my daughter, like if my daughter did what I did, it would be a full hell no.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
moving this man that exactly is had less than an ideal life, and some of his choices caused that. I knew what I felt. I was like, I know what I feel. But at this point, nobody trusted what I felt because I had just gotten back from Arizona from something that I thought was, a great thing. And it wasn't. So I move him in. My parents are, not thrilled at all. I mean, at the time, this man doesn't even have a car.
Yeah.
Like, very low place in his life. And I cannot tell you the amount of just work he got right into, of proving to me that I am something, to the point of going and getting a job at a retail store. I mean, around Thanksgiving time, who wants to do that? Nobody. Like, went and worked retail. He was, got a really piece of crap car. Like, but he was like showing me these little things, right? And I so badly just wanted a sure thing and seriously, I just wanted like a father figure for my daughter, that we got married really soon. We got married within like 6 months of that. And I remember dancing with my dad on my wedding day. And my dad said, "Is this what it's supposed to feel like?" And I said, "I'm not sure. I think it is. But I'm going to make this work, Dad. I'm going to make this work." And
was it and again, you can answer if you wish, but was it a case of you knew this was the guy you were going to spend the rest of your life with because you knew this was the guy, or was there a little bit of, I'm going to have to make it work regardless because my parents think it's not going to?
The latter, I'm going to have to make it work.
Yeah.
I knew I felt safety from him, and I knew he was a sure thing. What I later was able, right, we always, in hindsight, it's 2020, looking back, I loved to fix people. I loved to take someone, and make them a better someone. And I could feel that from a really young age that I did. And like, I even took that upon myself when my brother was in his active addiction, right? Of being the person that he would hold space for him. He would come home some nights so high that he would ask to sleep on my floor, and I would keep my hand on his chest to make sure he was breathing all night. I loved to fix people. It made me feel valuable. And so I remember on my wedding day when he asked me that, I thought, well, yes, because I'll make this work, first of all, to prove you and Mom wrong. But I also love this little project I have. Like, I love that I have this little fixer-upper, I'm
actually going to put Tyler in my phone as Tyler Fixer-Upper Reigns.
The fixer-upper, totally. And, it's just...
Quick lick of paint, he'll be fine.
I know.
Oh, bless him.
So I know.
And he's going to listen to this and start laughing his ass off.
Oh, he is, because he knows he was my little fixer-upper project. And, so 10 years, so Tyler enters our life May 19th of, 2010. And Haley immediately started to call him Dad. Like, there was never, like, it was kind of there was a daddy Tyler.
And how old was your, this at 3, 4?
She was 4 at this time. When we got married, she was 4. She called him Daddy Tyler for a while, which, I mind you, she never referred to anyone else as Dad. And then now it's just very much, right, that's Dad.
Went through the same thing.
Yeah.
I had Matt Daddy for years.
I was listening to to a couple of your episodes where it was like Matt Daddy, and then it just turned to Dad.
Just turned to Dad, yeah.
And it's just, you let them just kind of do that when they...
Yeah, and you'll have heard this on the other podcast. Like, I wanted that dad thing really quickly.
Yes.
And that was a real pain point for me for a long time. I was like, yeah, I know they have their biological dad, but I'm also doing, 50% of the dad stuff too. Like, when do I get the title?
Yes.
And you just can't force it. And here's what you can do. You can, Andrea and I would refer to myself as Dad, or to try and, if they hear me say it, they might just be like, oh, why are we calling him this? We're just calling. So I would refer to myself as Dad, but I would never push it. And then it was beautiful. It was actually friends of ours, Rick and Marty Croissant. They were an older couple. They actually housed me when Andrea and I had our affair. I was kicked out of the house by my ex-wife because she found out I was having an affair. So, all my possessions were thrown in the street, everything. I was kind of kicked out of the house. I had nowhere to go. I was like, oh, great, I'm going to live in my car. This is how this is going to go down, right? I worked for Andrea. Andrea was my
Yes.
boss.
Uh-huh.
I tried to get a promotion, got a wife. Hey ho, it is what it is.
Hey-ho.
Yeah, I was like, if I actually fall in love with the boss, will I get a promotion? I actually got a wife, and she's also still my boss. No, I'm kidding. She's not my boss. We are very, very equal. But at the time, I was kind of out on the street. And so one of the people that we worked with, a guy by the name of Rick Croissant, he was a friend of Andrea's family. He worked for Andrea in the company. They were in their early 60s. They didn't have, their kids had flown the coop. They had this beautiful little house in Tucson. They were kind of just living this beautiful kind of like early 60-year-old life, right? And Rick just turned around to me and was like, you're going to come live with us. And I was like, what? He's like, we have a guest room. We have a garage. You can put all your shit in the garage. You're going to come live with us for however long it takes for you to get back on your feet. You don't have to pay us rent. You don't have to do a single thing. The bedroom yours. There's the key. Come and go as you please. Just get yourself back on your feet. And I was like, well, what can I, I got to give you something. And he went, just do me the both of them said, just do us a favor. In the future, pay it forward. I was like, okay. Yeah. So I actually lived with Rick and Marty for about 6 months in their guest room.
Okay.
And that was in the point of probably maybe a little longer, but that was like going through the divorce. Andrea was going through her divorce. Andrea had already moved out and got her own place. I kind of lived with Rick and Marty. And then when we were both fully divorced, we went and bought our first house together. And then Andrea and I lived together. But I lived with Rick and Marty for about 6 months. But during that time, that was, they were kind of almost like my American parents. They took real good care of me while I was here. And it was actually Rick and Marty that came up with the name Matt Daddy. For me. They would just call me Matt Daddy, and it just kind of stuck. And then we would refer to myself as Matt Daddy in front of the kids, and then the kids picked it up. So it went just from Matt to Matt Daddy, and then like with Tyler, just over time, it just became Dad. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just Dad now.
And it just feels like an organic thing that happens in the kids.
And actually it was kind of interesting. So the girls would call me Matt Daddy, and then they would call their obviously biological dad. But then as they started to get older, they actually started referring to me as Matt Daddy and then him as Brian Daddy.
Oh, okay.
And Andrea and I had to shut that down real quick. And we were like, that's not the way this game goes, kids. He's your dad. He always gets that title. So you never call him Brian Daddy. He's just Dad. Daddy, whatever you want. I am Matt Daddy. That's my title. I was like, you don't get to lessen his to make him to the same level as me. I've got to earn the right. He doesn't get to lose the right. Yeah. So we always tried to instill that with the kids. And they were just doing it for their own peace of mind, so they could understand which parent they were talking about. They weren't doing it out of malice or disrespect, but we wanted to ensure that he still got the proper title. Yeah. So he always became Daddy. And in the UK, we don't use the term daddy very often. We actually use the term dad.
Okay.
So I would refer to myself as Dad, and he became Daddy, and that's how we kind of figured it out. Yeah. So now, the girls very rarely call me Daddy. It's just Dad.
Dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
So that's why I have it on my arm. So I just have.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's funny that Tyler went through the same thing. You went, Daddy Tyler.
It's like this evolution of into where she started to feel comfortable to just, and we did have the conversation, when she was old enough to understand that, like, you have a biological dad that lives in California, right? That's how you came about. But this dad lived, like, he's taking care of you. He's taking the role of, he's stepping in to do that. So yeah, so it just, our marriage was extremely rocky for the first 10 years. I always tell people this, it just was, we're multiple separations. I mean, multiple being, I think there was 3 or 4.
What were the causes of those?
Different things. First of all, Tyler, like I said, had a less than like ideal when we met, like, life up till then. There was some lying, some hiding of, different vices that he was using to cope. And I just was like, trust is a huge thing for me. Like, I have to be able to trust you. It's one of my top values, like that, integrity, honesty. And so I would be like, you can't live here. Like, and what would get under my skin is I really was a single mom working, this bartending job to try to make ends meet. And he's living under basically my roof with me and my daughter. And that, that was the first couple of years. It was just lying. Like it was little lies. And I just said, I'm worried if I okay these lies, like where does it turn into? And, you have a background that's not
squeaky
super
clean.
squeaky clean. So I have to, but I will tell you, Matt, and Tyler and I have talked about this now today. Back then I wanted an out somehow. There was multiple times that when I would kick him out, I was like, okay, this is because I want an out. Like, and no other reason than I felt this claustrophobic feeling of him trying to love me. He was trying so hard to love me and I was trying so hard to repel him. The energy every day it took to shut him down was, I felt like a bad person. I felt like there was something wrong with me because he literally was just trying to love me. Like people looking in at our relationship would be like, he loves you so much. And I'm like, it's disgusting how much he loves me.
Wow.
Like it's foul. It's how does anyone love a human this much? Like he's obsessed with me, I would say. And
so where did that come from? Did that come from you not being loved by other partners, or did it come from you not loving you? And not because I felt this too, right? In my past and in my story, I struggled for years, and quite honestly, 38 years of struggling with self-love. Looking back, if I look at all of the evidence, and so it's so crazy the way that we tell our own stories to ourselves, our own narratives. I went through 38 years of not feeling loved, not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, which in turn, when you don't love yourself, it is very difficult to receive the love of others.
yes,
No matter the size, the volume, the amount of love that is given to you, you don't receive it. So for many, many, many years, I didn't love myself and I didn't think anybody else loved me too. Looking back now that I've done the work and done the healing and figured out I love myself now, I look back at things and I'm like, oh yeah, as a kid, my parents didn't really love me and blah, 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 blah. Shit, if I go back and look at all the old birthday cards and the pictures, I'm like, they absolutely loved the shit out of me. There was no doubt, unquestionable that they loved me.
yeah,
The birthday cards, the notes, the birthday pictures from when I was a kid, like they poured love into me all day long. I just didn't receive it.
yep,
And the same with Andrea. In fact, we had a conversation this morning, Andrea and I, that, and as sad as this will sound, because of another podcast that I did, there was something mentioned in there that really I wasn't in my marriage with Andrea in a place where I was receiving her love. So the conversation we had this morning was, I've actually really, truly only been married to Andrea for 1.5 years.
Oh, Matt, I love this conversation because I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that. I've only been married to Tyler for 3 years.
Yeah. We've been married for 10 years.
Yes.
Next year. And December 31st, 2024 is our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
But I feel, or in fact, Andrea and I feel like we've really only been married for 1.5 years since I fixed the self-love problem. Now, Andrea's loved the shit out of me since the day she met me. And I've loved her in a way too, but it's not at the level that we're at now because I couldn't receive her love. I couldn't receive the love of the girls. It's really difficult when you don't love yourself, right?
Yes.
So is that
fascinating because
it's
that
so
you are
crazy.
Speaking our language.
Yeah, it's
that
bananas.
is it. I wanted to externalize it and be like, it's because I've had my heart broken too many times. It's because I've been with, horrible men. And I would externalize it then, but just the multiple different times we would get back together, we would make it work. And a lot of times I'd just be like, I got to make this work for my daughter. Like this is now dad. Like I can't take this away from her. I've got to make this work. And in the back of my mind, I got to prove my parents wrong, that this is going to work. This is going to work. This is going to work. Multiple different separations throughout different snippets of time in our life. And the last separation that happened was in 2019. 2019 is such a pivotal year for me because I was completely burning the candle at both ends. I was burning myself out. I was building my brother's business at the time. So my brother, who was an addict, got into recovery. He's almost 11 years sober.
And in fact, and I just want to say this too. I actually was with Brad the other day at an event. We were just talking about this off air. He actually mentioned he's coming home on his 11th anniversary. I think it's November 5th this year.
November 20th.
No, so November 20th. There we go. Yeah. So kudos to Brad if you're listening. You know,
11
for somebody
years.
to be sober for 11 years.
So it's cool because he's been
huge-
sober as long as he used drugs.
Yeah.
So it's a cool pivotal year. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I just.
So you're burning the candle at both ends. You were helping Brad build his business.
I was helping him build this business, this Key Nutrition that he still is owner and operator of. He and I opened that together in 2017 and literally built it from the ground up. Like, it was kind of a cool thing to look back on, and the life lessons that I learned that have translated into my personal business today. It's so cool the way it worked. But in 2019, I really just started to think, like, I want to be a career woman. Like, I don't want to worry about a marriage. I don't want to worry about being a mom. It's so wild to me to think back on that. I literally was like, I don't know if I can be like a full-time mom, like, to my own children.
Wow.
And all I could see was like dollar signs and being in these rooms with massive, big people, right? And having my ego stroked, and, you know, how well I run a business. And
so that was almost giving you the dopamine.
Oh,
that was replacing the dopamine hits of what love and loving relationship would give you.
And then I was like, hey, this is what you're supposed to feel like. This is where you're supposed to get your validation. Like, my ego was being stroked in those rooms of like, oh my gosh, you are a woman, here you roar, you're running this business, like, it's successful. And I just started to think that, like, I got delusional about what I wanted in life. Like, literally thinking I wanted my kids 50% of the time. I'm their full-time mom. Like, that's what I am. It was wild. And I started to completely disconnect from anything internal, and my external body. If you would have seen me, I was fly. Like, I had this physique that people would just flaunt over. Oh my gosh, you look so good. And I'm like, yeah. Inside, I was an empty shell of a human. And I'll never forget, in September of 2019, I started to do 75 hard. I started it, completed it. And when I was done, I still have the picture in my phone. And not because I want to go back and go, I wish I had that body. I look at her and it makes me emotional because she was so empty inside. She had the best physique of her adult life. And she was the scaredest, most empty person.
Yeah.
And that was November that I finished 75 hard. And in December, I went to a retreat with Key Nutrition. So all of the people working within this company that Brad and I were building, we went to this retreat. And I remember on the itinerary, there was breathwork. I knew nothing about it then. And I was like, I don't know what this is. Like, started Googling it, and you find really weird things if you Google breathwork, like these writhing bodies screaming, like cathartic
Get out!
exorcism.
Get out! I've seen it all.
Where I'm like, I'm Googling it, and I'm literally like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing this. At that time, so I was 37 at the time. I prided myself on, I don't cry. And if you hurt me, I will hurt you 10 times worse. I promise. That was like my MO
You're a
in
little
life.
angry mama over there.
I was I tell people, I'm like, no, I was foul. I will be in rooms sometimes guiding, and I'll say, if you knew me prior to finding breathwork, I apologize for any inconvenience that has caused in your life, because I was mean. Like,
where did that come from? Where did the meanness, the foulness, the angriness come from?
I think
what were you searching for?
I was searching to feel okay being Michelle. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't find it. Externally, I had done everything. I had had so many different boyfriends. You can't even believe. My dad would call it the boyfriend du jour, like the boyfriend of the month. I had so many boyfriends. I never didn't have a boyfriend.
Gotcha.
I was seeking externally for that validation. I'd buy the next new car. I'd buy the next new that everything externally to try to solve this emptiness I felt inside. And breathwork on the schedule. And I'm like, it's a solid hell no. Like, I'm not doing it. And my brother, who was, paying for the entire retreat, was like, I would really appreciate, I've paid a pretty dime to have this woman come. And I'll never forget, she shows up and she has her yoga mats as she comes to the front door. And I'm like, here we go. This is where it gets weird. Like, this is what I don't want to do.
Now you know how we were all feeling in Bear Lake.
1,000%. Every time I see that look in someone's face, I'm like, I've been there.
I've been there.
I know how you're feeling right now. Because I literally was like, I don't want to lay on a yoga mat and do breath work. Like, that doesn't sound fun to me.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, Q finally getting me talked into doing breath work. Trust me, I scouted out every exit in the place I was in. Like, how can I get out of here if this goes south, right? And I tell people I dropped into that breath work. It's fine. When I finally realized I couldn't leave, I finally just softened in. Like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, and I'm going to go. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go full in.
Yeah.
You know? And so I laid there and I started to breathe. And, you know, when you do breath work, the first 5 to 7 minutes, especially of your very first experience, is just kind of like, this is bizarre. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be feeling? Like, all of these thoughts going through my head of like, this, okay, like this. I'm hyperventilating. Yeah, like nothing's happening except for I'm breathing like a maniac.
Yep.
And she just kept, trust the process, trust your body, trust your body. And she kept saying the words drop into your body. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Because I have never had access to my, I try everything to disconnect from my body.
Yeah.
I have used drugs. I have used sex. I have used everything to disconnect from this body of mine. And you're telling me to drop into it. So I just kept using the breath. And as I started to feel my belly rise, then my chest rise, and it fall, I started to really focus on that. I'm like, okay, that is my body. At some point in that journey, I dropped into my body. And I found this place inside of you. I don't know if you know, it's right in the center of your chest. It's called your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I located it through the barricades that I had built upon it. And I literally, I can still envision it all. It started to crumble. These walls just started to crumble on my heart. And I thought, if only just even for this hour, I let that happen. I want to see what happens. And I had this feeling that was so tangible that I thought there was some sort of heat lamp, something, maybe Palo Santo sage that was hovering above my chest that was hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept breathing and I started to go, I want this feeling forever. So then I started to breathe deeper because I was like, I don't want to forget. I want to know this. I want this forever and ever. And started to cry. I don't cry. And she kept saying, don't attach to the why behind, just let the tears, you know, just wails started to come out of me. Just these, like, I don't know where they were coming from. And I remember coming out of that breathwork experience and I sat up and I just thought, I have to feel that forever. Like, whatever that just was.
That's your new voice.
This is what I've chased.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's inside me.
That's literally the thing that you've been pushing down for years with alcohol and sex and boys and kid, like,
yes.
Yeah.
Was that. And I just remember thinking, okay, so now I almost felt like my heart was like on stage naked. Like I felt like it was like so raw and so tender. And we're in San Diego, we're at this retreat. And I felt this overwhelming feeling of, it's so raw and so tender. How do I go home and just let Tyler love me? Like, I know that's what that was. That's love that I was feeling, but it was from inside. It was the first time I felt self-love that I tangibly can put my finger on. Like,
that's so beautiful. That's
what it feels like. And I could feel it just radiating in my body. And I remember looking at the mentor who later became my breath mentor. I looked at her that day and I said, if you leave here, I'm terrified I'm never going to feel this way again. And she said, I didn't do it. You did it. I held the space for you to feel and to be who you are and to access those deepest parts and to remind you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
You did when I leave, that has nothing to do with what you feel. And I chased breathwork for an entire year. But the last time I separated from Tyler was after breathwork. I went home and I was so raw and naked. I said, I don't know what I need, but I need space. And he said, if you need space, then we're divorcing. I'm done doing this. I am done having you just keep shooing me from your life. All I'm trying to do is love you, Michelle. And he sat there and he was bawling and he said, I just want to love you forever. And you won't let me. You won't let me love you. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I did feel something new in San Diego, and I feel I want to be loved, and I know that like love is inside of me, but like I don't know how to let you back in. That was the last time we separated, but it was so beautiful because we separated with the intention to start dating each other.
I love that.
So we started dating each other again in like, it was February, March of 2020. And I'm so madly in love with that man.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine my life without him.
Yeah.
He's my everything.
Oh, he's a stud.
And I just am like, he just wanted to love me all those
Well, here's
years.
the irony too. You've just come out of Breathwork in San Diego. It's early 2020. You've got home to Tyler and you're like, I'm feeling all this shit. I need space. He's not giving it to you, and fair play on him for like, no, Michelle, you're not running from this. Sit your ass down. We're working this out. And then and then COVID happens.
Yes.
And y'all are getting locked down. Talk about the universe saying, oh, you need space, sweetheart? Hold my beer. You ain't getting it. Sit in your shit and work it out, right?
Yeah, hold my beer and watch this because this is going to be really good. So, we laugh because it's so true. We get, in total lockdown, right? Relying on only each other and what's within the four walls of our home.
Yeah.
And it was the universe going, you're going to see the badass mom that you are, the way these children love you, and you and Tyler are going to make memories, and like you are going to start new and fresh. And it's so funny because we have this joke, but it's not a joke. Like literally we have taken every shower together since 2020. Like we shower together. That's our time together. We talk in the shower, nothing more. I mean, sometimes, but that's our time to talk. And like everything shifted for us when I let my freaking self be loved by him. And the way in which I love people now. So I thought I hated people for 37 years. I literally did. I tell people the person I was, she's almost getting so distant from me. Like I can't, she's not me. Like sometimes I'll find her inside of me and I call her Ghetto Michelle to like kind of come creeping back up, that like, it's like my alter ego that comes. But I am so madly in love with humans. I'm in love with the connection and the mirrors that we are for each other. And it all for me came through that moment of breath, because the moment of breath, what it did for me was it accessed the love that's always been inside of me. Yeah. It's just been too scared. It's
such an amazing tool. And I'm really glad you touched on that and shared your story, because, my experience with breathwork, which my first ever time I did it was with you, is one of the most powerful breathworks that I've ever done. And I've only done probably 3 or 4 since then. But I was very much the same as you. When part of We Are the They, we were in Bear Lake with the 50 men, and we were going to do a breathwork session. And same thing, I'm like, well, what's breathwork? There were several guys in the room whose wives do breathwork and stuff like that, so they kind of knew what it was, right? But I had no idea. I did have an understanding of what it was because Andrea had done it up at a retreat, and she'd had a beautiful vision in breathwork, and I still couldn't quite get my head around how breathing gave her this hallucination, this vision, whatever, right? So I didn't want to dispel it because I knew it was impactful to her. But at the same time, I'm also very kind of like realistic. Yeah. So I'm like, breathing hard gives you a vision. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Let's go. And we're in this loft upstairs. There's 50 of us, like nuts to butts, head to toe. There was no space to move in that room. We were packed in like sardines. It stinks like ass because there's 50 of us. And none of us have showered in a day and a half because we're all in this house together with like 3 bathrooms, right? Yeah. And then there's you at the front of the room just like with your crystals out and the candles and the sound bowls. And we're like, well, this is an experience. But it was sensational. It was incredibly powerful. And I remember laying in that room, I'm surrounded by friends, and I just lay there and I thought, well, quite honestly, fuck it. Yeah. I can either resist this or I can just go along with it. Exactly. I'm either going to laugh about this in an hour's time and be like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever done, but I did it. Or I'm going to come out of this and actually get something out of it. And I'm like, with We Are the They, I'm in this mindset of just go all in. Yeah. If Jimmy says we're going to do this, just freaking do it. There are some things I'm pushed back. I'm like, really? We're going to do another cold plunge? Really? Whatever. Let's do it, right? But I trust Jimmy. I trust the process. And when there's 50 of you doing it and you're playing all in, you just play all in, right? Life-changing. That's all I can honestly say. Life-changing. I don't know how it works. I don't try to want to figure out how it works. I have no idea. I just know I had an oxygen orgasm.
Yeah.
And
there you go.
Because, okay, on the funny side of this too, it happens a lot. Like there's people in the room, they're breathing heavy. I'm like, somebody's having a goddamn orgasm over there. You know, there's, you're like, why is he having one and why aren't I? When does that happen to me? Right? And it's like, well, that's kind of weird. And now you're listening to kind of them having an orgasm and then people over here having an orgasm. Like, this is the worst sexual orgy I've ever been in with my clothes on. Right? It's terrible. But it's also beautiful. People are going through their own things. People, like you said, they're letting oxygen out. They're bringing oxygen in. It's a really, if you've never done breathwork, people, Google it. Well, actually, don't Google it because you'll probably go down the wrong road. But look for breathwork in your area. If you're in Salt Lake, Michelle is amazing at it. If you're wherever you are, try and just trust yourself once to go do breathwork. It is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I had this amazing experience, and it really gave me a vision of changing my life. And I honestly, that to me, the breath work with you, and I don't think I've ever told you this personally, but the breath work with you was probably one of the final things in my life that clicked the box, that checked the last box.
Oh, wow.
I'd gone through the work in Moab, I'd gone through the work in St. George and had breakthroughs. And then that breathwork session was like, okay, this is the last thing this is literally the last thing you need to do. And that was it. That was the last piece of the self-love thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really impactful. So I know exactly where you're coming from. You've gone through breathwork, felt love for the first time. That was really the changing moment for me with self-love too, was the breathwork.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I remember sharing my story with you with you, and you were like, "Ooh," I was like, "What does that mean?" And you were like, "Oh, baby, we need to unpack that one."
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like I
buried yourself.
I buried myself. Yeah. Yeah. I'm literally lay in a grave, looking up at the sky, unable to move, with somebody throwing dirt on me in a grave.
Yep.
And then I finally saw who it was that was throwing dirt on me. It was myself. I was literally burying myself.
You were burying yourself. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
It's so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I came out of the grave. I saw my family. I saw my friends. I had this beautiful vision of a stag, which no idea where that came from.
And now you have a stag in your
so now I have a stag in my dining room, and my Patronus is my stag. I'm Harry Potter. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just Harry Potter.
Totally.
So no, breathwork is super powerful. So I love the fact that you and I are on different times, different things, but had the very same experience of like it opened up that love space, that heart space.
Yes.
Which is just amazing.
Yeah. It's just it's a whole different playing field. Like I tell people, there's a depth to my life now that I didn't realize was there before. And I think the depth is love.
Yeah. So you had this beautiful experience. You go back, you try and pull away from Tyler, who just doesn't let you go. And he said, sit your ass down. We're figuring this out. COVID happens. You're locked in together. How did your relationship with Tyler in 2020 change? But also, how did your relationship with your kids change after breathwork?
I think it was like this level in which I viewed them from it was just like so tender and raw that it's almost like I wanted to know them again. Like I wanted to know them at a deeper level, and nothing better than literally having them not even be at school. Like, to really learn who they were and to learn what makes them tick. And Tyler and I decided to go all in. And when I say that to people, because they'll say, what changed? We went all in. But what I mean is he and I both got into separate therapists. We had tried marriage therapy in the past and we didn't love it. That's just our personal opinion. I think there's wonderful marriage therapists out there. We just started to do the work on ourselves individually. And for us, that's what going all in meant. Yeah. And there was just a level of respect that we had and a level of knowing that like, this is what we both want. So let's make it work. Like, let's let each other. I mean, the biggest switch was me allowing him to love me.
Yeah. And
when I could just settle into that place, I'm like, this is the safety I felt the very first time I met you, was this. And it came back to where it was like, you're not a sure thing. You're safe. You're my protector. You're my other half, like literally, and we just went all in, and he's just the most supportive, great husband there is. I ended up wanting to get breath certified because I really wanted to learn the like whys and the hows and the how do you actually hold this space for people to have these fundamental transformational experiences. And, so I did invest in getting a certification and getting certified in it. And those 6 months of certification changed me at a level even deeper, and now I want people to experience what their own breath can do for them forever.
Yeah. How is, so, obviously you and Tyler as a couple, as husband and wife, have gone through your ups and downs, right? Mm-hmm. You've gone through separations, you've gone through getting back together, not feeling loved, not wanting to be loved, very, lots of different emotions. What effect did that have on your kids?
Oh, a lot of effect. And the good thing is that today, like in our house, we are a very open family. We talk very honestly, openly about like our feelings. And if we're feeling something, like I never try to tell my kids, like if they go, I'm nervous, I never tell them you're fine, because they're not. They're expressing they're nervous. So I need to let them feel what they're feeling. And so we've had many conversations where we've sat down and said, how did it feel when Dad and I would go through these hard times? What did it make you feel like? And, fear and uneasy and all these feelings that came up that we were just like, yeah. And you know what? Dad and I today, we are stronger because of it. We are so sorry that we ever, had you be a part of that and having to feel through that. My daughter at 17 now can articulate that, like, she knows exactly, like she's like, Mom, I know exactly what it looks like to have your heart closed. And I know exactly what it looks like to have, because she and I are very close, and she could kind of feel what I was feeling. And she's like, life's so much better if you just open your heart and let yourself, and she's like the epitome of fun. Yeah. And she loves really, really deep, really hard. And she said, I really think I learned how to truly love. Like, even though it was really hard and I had lots of nights where I would just cry and want you guys to be okay and, would worry when the next fight was going to happen. She's like, the way you and Dad are today, you guys fought to get here, and it's kind of cool. She's like, it's kind of cool to tell my friends that. Like, my parents really fought for the marriage they have. Because people will see me and Tyler today and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys, have you always been like this? And it's like, no. Yeah. Just for 3 years. Like, this is how I've loved, let him love me.
Yeah, it was so surprising when I heard that.
Yeah.
Through Andrea, who, you and Andrea have such a beautiful relationship and friendship. And when she shared that, I was like, really? I was like, those guys are fucking awesome. Yeah. You would never guess. Yeah. How's Tyler's relationship with your eldest daughter?
Amazing. So So that is Dad to her. Her dad, her biological dad, like tried to come back in her life when she was 10, and that, did not work out. And we sat down with her and said, what do you want this to look like? And she really is happy knowing her biological dad, meeting him a couple times, feeling like she knows kind of like, okay, I can see that I got my nose from him. That kind of stuff. Yeah. But Dad is Dad. Like, Dad is my dad. And people will even say like, oh, your daughter looks like your husband. And I'm like, yeah. Isn't that funny? Time. Yeah. I get that all the time. Yeah, and we just go with it,
Oh, absolutely. People tell me, oh, your Lily looks just like you. I'm like, yeah, thank you.
Yep. So it's beautiful. They had a really rocky when she was like hit puberty and was, PMSy and Mm-hmm. It's just, a little bit difficult, and he doesn't totally understand. He yells all brothers. And
amen.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, a lot in common.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
2 brothers. Now I've got 2 daughters. Yep. Oh, I get it. 100%. Yeah. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah. And when the 3 of them in the house, it's that week, I'm like, I'm packing my bags. I'll get a hotel.
Mark, I'm coming over.
Yeah, Mark, make the guest room. I'm coming to Utah. It's that week.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful relationship. And then we have a little 12-year-old boy together.
And then you have a little boy together. You and Tyler have a little boy together.
Yep. But we're just one big happy family. It's just, I
love that. So what's the next step? What's the next phase for the Rains family?
Tyler he started with a company this past April that is, big visions for that company. Tyler has big visions for our 5-year future. We've got, our daughter will be graduating high school. And so that's a whole new, phase of life, I feel like. But we're in a place that is so fun, so healthy. My kids are thriving. Like sometimes I feel this like weird, like it's almost like this guilt because I know there's really hard things out there. My kids are really thriving. We've never been parents that like harp on them for grades and stuff. And they both just finished their first term of the years of school they're in with straight A's. I'm like, how does that happen? Like they're really thriving, sweet kids, given kind of the rockiness of 10 years of what Tyler and I went through. But I think Tyler and I are just in a really cool place of self-development, self-love. We do the work together, we'll read books together so that we can then discuss them.
Don't lie. You read to Tyler.
I do. Tyler has to have Audible. And I actually read the book.
Too.
Yeah.
I don't read a book.
He's like, how are you on page 20? I'm on page half.
Yeah.
Not even one.
I literally listen to books and Andrea reads them.
Yeah.
We buy a book. I listen to the audio version. Andrea reads it.
There we go. There we go. Very similar.
So similar.
This is why me and Andrea jam together well.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I want to ask a question. I actually figured this question out on a couple of episodes ago, and I think it's such a beautiful, fun question. If your son and your daughter were to label mom in one word, what would it be?
Oh. Integrity, which is really cool to me because integrity is just a top value of mine, because I can tell you, I lay my head down at night and I make sure I was honest in all of my dealings. And I make sure that my kids know that honesty is huge and that staying in integrity that sometimes doing the right thing is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Because in the long run, you stay in that integrity and it's a beautiful place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, integrity. Or, they make fun of my laugh, but they think I laugh funny. But
if Tyler was to describe you in one word, what would it be? Let's keep it clean.
I was going to say my nickname that he calls me is not clean. What would he call? Yeah. Probably, I was going to say loyal. He'd probably sum it up as best friend. I mean, I know that's 2 words, but really that's
fine.
He is my best friend. Like, I'm like, it's not worth getting divorced because we want to be best friends. Like, we're in this forever.
I love that.
So,
I love that you found your person.
Yeah.
I love that he found his person.
Me too.
And for those that know you and love you like we do, you guys are just amazing. You really are. You're a perfect couple. You know, Tyler has, as you mentioned, Tyler has his own career, his own business working for the company he works for. Yeah, he supports you with every breath work you do. He's always there. He's always your biggest cheerleader. Strangely enough, going back to breathwork in Bear Lake, it was actually Tyler that put his hand on my chest when I was going through things. And it's really weird because I honestly thought it was you because you were the facilitator. But, and again, I know this is kind of going kooky energy levels, all that sort of stuff. But after the breath work, I was talking to you about my breath work, my vision, and all that sort of stuff. And it was cool. And then Tyler came over. And as soon as he came over and stood next to us, I was like, you're the one that put your hand on me.
You could tell that.
I just felt it was so, and I thought it was you originally because you were the facilitator.
Yeah.
But as soon as he stood there and was kind of listening to us talk, I was like, it was you. I just felt, I was like, it was you that touched me. And he was like,
yeah.
Oof, okay.
He's still, and it's crazy the connection you can have when somebody is in breath work and just that soul level that's there.
Yeah.
I think that's why Tyler has such a connection to you. I do.
He's
And that's
Andrea,
same for me, the breath work and where I facilitated for her.
Yeah, he's such a good dude. So I love that you came on and that you shared. I think you and Tyler are absolutely beautiful. You're dear friends of ours. I really appreciate you opening up and talking about the struggles, the past, the addictions, all the problems, the lack of self-love. And I'm eternally grateful that you found your self-love and you found breath work because you've gone on and helped me. You've helped Andrea. You've helped hundreds of others, thousands of others through breath work. So I'm excited to call you a dear friend. I'm excited to see where your business takes you. And I'm excited to see where you and Mr. Rains end up too.
Thank you.
So
thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to the Bear Den podcast. Please click subscribe and get the updates for our new episodes. And if you feel the need to reach out, you can reach me on Instagram @TheBritBear.